Santa's Early Christmas. I wish to tell you a story about Santa, who comes every year on Christmas to deliver his presents. But why does he only come on Christmas? Why doesn't he come at Easter or during summer? Listen carefully to my story and you will know why. Like every year on Christmas time, Santa was getting ready to deliver the presents. He started getting dressed. So he put on his flannel shirt and then on top of it a woolen sweater and on top of it another one and then his fluffy red pants and 2 pairs of woolen socks and his boots and finally his red fairy coat and his woolen hat.
"Oh my, look at me,"
he said.
"All dressed up like an onion with all these clothes. No wonder why I look so fat. But what can one do? It is freezing cold outside."
His sleigh was parked outside the house, and Rudolph the reindeer was waiting impatiently.
"Come on now, are we ready yet?"
Rudolph cried because he was freezing. Santa took a look to check if all the presents were loaded, and then they took off up to the frosty sky.
"Ho, ho, ho!"
Santa said cheerlessly.
"What on earth were they thinking, putting Christmas in the middle of the winter? A frozen night like this one is not for traveling. It is to sit by the fire and enjoy your cozy home with a cup of warm milk. What do you think, Rudy?"
The reindeer rang all the bells.
"I totally agree. With this snowy weather and the slippery rooftops, it's always risky to break a leg."
With these words, they arrived at the first house. The rooftop was covered in slippery snow, and the chimney was so narrow. Rudolph asked Santa,
"Do you always have to get in through the chimney?"
Santa looked puzzled.
"What do you expect me to do? Knock the door?"
And with saying this, he climbed on the chimney and put his one leg in. But the chimney was so narrow and Santa could not easily fit in there. He sucked in his belly, he held in his breath and was able to make it through the middle, but there he got stuck completely. Underneath, a slow fire was roasting his feet, and on top, the cold weather was freezing his head. Santa was pushing and moving his legs back and forth, his shoulders up and down, his head front and back, till suddenly he fell down in the room. His bag with all the presents fell on top of his head and then spread all over the floor.
"Enough is enough. I can't do this anymore,"
he said. And grumpy as he was, he went to all houses and shared the presents.
"I'm not doing this ever again. Next year we will have an early Christmas before the cold."
"What do you mean? How early?"
the reindeer asked.
"In July,"
Santa replied, and the sleigh was lost in the winter sky.
"Ho, ho, ho!"
And before they realized it, July came as they were working hard to have all the presents ready, and they missed vacation that year. Santa took a card from the garage.
We cannot travel with a sleigh midsummer,
he thought. Then he shaved his beard because it is very hot during summer. He wore a t-shirt and his jeans, put on his sandals, and looked himself in the mirror.
"Oh, I look like a tourist ready to travel,"
he said joyfully and got out of the house. The weather was hot and the sun was shining bright. The cart was light and Rudolph flew like a bird in the bright blue sky. They soon arrived at the first house. Without his heavy clothes, Santa slid with ease inside the chimney and the living room. But once he got in, he noticed that something really strange was happening. Where were the cookies and the milk? Where was the beautiful Christmas tree? Where were the bright Christmas lights and the festive decorations? The living room was empty. In fact, the whole house was empty. The people were away on vacation.
"Oh, well, this is new. This is how they show their gratitude,"
Santa thought.
"I come all this way to bring them presents, and they are gone."
Since there were no stockings hanging to leave the presents, he took them back and went up on the roof.
"No one is here,"
he said to Rudolph as soon as he got out of the chimney.
"They are all gone on vacation."
But Rudolph had his own worries. All this time, he was fighting a cloud of flies and mosquitoes.
"At least during winter there are no flies bothering me,"
he said, and tried to send them away by wagging his short tail. In every house they visited, the situation was more or less the same. Most of the times people were gone on vacation, and other times the children were awake playing outside because it was summer. And we all know that Santa does not visit a house when the children are awake. Then it got worse. In one of the houses they visited, they took him for a thief. "Thief! Someone broke into the house!" they yelled, and Father called the police. "There is another one on the roof! I can hear him!" Mother yelled.
"Enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. No warm welcome. Most of them are gone, and now calling me a thief. What is next? Getting arrested for bringing them gifts?"
Santa took all his presents, his card and Rudolph, and went back home. He stored everything inside the garage and decided to keep Christmas during winter, as it always was. Oh, there he is, wearing his thick red clothes, his hat, his boots, and his gloves, and out in the snow. Rudolph, as always, waiting outside in the freezing cold, ready to fly the sleigh with all its jingle bells. Both of them were silent that night. Santa was not in the mood for talking. He had forgotten to wear the second pair of socks, and now his feet were cold. Finally, they made it to the first house, the one with a narrow chimney. Santa took his presents, tightened up his belt, sucked his belly in, and sat on top of the chimney like an egg in an egg case. Push and turn and swirl, he managed to drop down inside the room. The living room was beautifully decorated. Colorful lights were hanging from the ceiling, and the tall Christmas tree was standing in the middle of the living room, shining bright. Outside, the snow was falling. On the table, there were cookies and a cup of warm milk, and next to them was a handmade Christmas card that wrote, Merry Christmas, Santa Claus. The children were sleeping peacefully in their beds, and their stockings were hanging from the fireplace, ready to receive their presents. Santa ate the cookies, drank the milk, and looked around satisfied.
Oh, it is so beautiful that Christmas time.
When he was finally back on the roof, he did not mind the cold weather and the snow.
Well, Rudy,
He said to the reindeer,
from now on, Christmas will only be on winter.
Rudolph flew above the snowy rooftops with the silver stars twinkling joyfully in the sky, listening to the sweet sound of the bells singing. He said,
Christmas is the most wonderful time of the year.